No track saw, no problem. I'm gonna show you 4 ways to get dead accurate cuts using a circular saw, and it's all on a budget. Let's go. If you'd like to check out any of these tools I showed today, there'll be a link in the description, the pinned comment, and that shop button here on YouTube if it's available. If it's not there, check that pinned comment. First on the list has to be one of the best inventions for an alternate to a track saw that I've seen in decades. I showed this a couple of years ago and we had the outlaw effect happen in full force. It sold out very, very quickly because of how useful it really is. This is the Milescraft track saw guide. It's absolutely genius. It's under $100 and they made a massive improvement. Plus, it'll fit basically any circular saw that you want to use with it. Let me show you what to do. First off, the packaging on this is really nice. You want your tracks to stay protected in transport so they don't get damaged before you get them, and they did a good job here. You'll see that in the packaging. When you unpackage everything, you see you have everything you need to get started cutting sheet goods or anything else. You get 2 track clamps, you get 2 pieces of track, and you get the trolley. So the only thing left is a circular saw. You provide that, you're off to the races. It comes with 2 tracks, and that gives you enough for 50 inches of cutting. So in other words, across a piece of plywood. They do sell extra tracks should you want to cut the full length of plywood. I would recommend picking those up if you do break down plywood a lot. Now when you put these 2 pieces of track together, you may see a little bit of slack there. It's fine, most tracks do that. All you have to do is get some type of straight edge to hold against the track, snug those up, don't over tighten these screws. These are aluminum, and when you start tightening metal into aluminum, it can dent them, but that's true with Festool tracks, Makita tracks. These are just lightweight aluminum, so you don't want to bear down on those little screws. Snug is fine. One nice feature about this Milescraft track is it has an anti-skid on the bottom. What that's for is when you set that track on a piece of plywood, it grips. It doesn't slide around very easily. Now you can push it if you want, but once you start putting pressure down, it really grips. And that's a nice feature to have on these tracks. The way this works is kind of genius. They made a trolley, basically, that will fit most circular saws up to 7 1/4 inches, and it rides on this track. You can adjust this trolley so that it fits just right on the track so there's no slop in there. They also included a blade spacer that you're going to lay down on the stock, set your saw on there, then you can install the saw to the trolley. It's very easy. There's just 4 screw clamps that hold the saw in place and it holds it securely. These also come with spacers should you need to have a spacer in there for any reason, and it will also fit the saw this way, whatever way that is. You just loosen these 2 screws, push this black bar up against the saw, snug them up, and then tighten down your clamps, and you're good to go. Like you're ready to start cutting. And it does a fantastic job on cutting. I use this to cut several different things, including plywood and even up to a 2-inch piece thick of walnut, and it was dead accurate. Now that's going to depend on the quality of your circular saw too, so keep that in mind. If you have one that's really flimsy, it may not get as accurate results on thicker woods, but for plywoods and MDF, most saws are probably going to do perfectly fine. Like I said, this will fit most circular saws up to 7 1/4. You can see here, I put a 7 1/4 rigid in, then a 7 1/4 Ryobi saw, and then a 6 1/2 inch Ryobi saw that goes the opposite direction of the other 2, and it fits all 3. So it doesn't matter at all which direction your circular saw goes, it should fit. Now, I will say that if you have a very high-end rear handle worm drive circular saw like this, these don't fit in this track. But most other circular saws like these fit perfect. I reviewed this 2 years ago, and I'm still impressed with it. I mean, put a cape on me. I'm super impressed. This is awesome. But they just impressed me more because now they come out with this, the Milescraft Track Saw Square. If you've ever seen any of my other videos on track saw accessories, I love a track square. It's like you make your track into a big speed square and you can get very quick, very accurate square cuts. So if you're breaking down sheet goods or just cutting across wider boards, this is going to be fantastic for you. And I love how they did it. This is very well integrated. First, it's very easy to install. There's just 2 T-nuts on there that you're going to slip into the track, snug those up. When you snug those up, everything just pulls itself square. Now, I would recommend checking that square every time just to double check. On mine, every time I've done this, it comes out perfectly square. So I like that it does that. There's also a very genius feature here. And when you set this down, there's a tab that you can slide forward, and that holds the edge of the square on your stock so everything remains level and flat and it doesn't tip or cause any inaccuracies at all. And a good thing about this track square is it doesn't matter which end of the track it's on, that's up to you. It'll fit both ways. And because of that little anti-tip slide moves back and forth, you can use that on either end as well. Another cool feature about the track square is the fact that they put little notches in there so that you can still use your clamps even when you're using the track square. I think that's a really cool idea, and I'm glad to see that here. I think this is one of the best ways that anybody has come up with to date on getting straight, accurate cuts, especially on plywoods, using your standard circular saw without breaking the bank. I've reviewed tons of track saws, and all of them are quite pricey. Even the more budget options. This, if you already have a circular saw, it's the way to go. But it's not without its drawbacks. There are a few here. First, you can't bevel cut with this. It just won't work. These are for 90-degree straight cuts all day long. Works great for that, no bevel cuts. Dust collection is up to your circular saw. If it sucks, the dust collection is going to suck too. It's just the way it is. All circular saws are like that because of that big old exposed blade. There's no shroud there like track saws have to cover that. That's just nature of the beast. There's also no plunge action specifically. While I think you probably could do it, just the way circular saws, the way you have to loosen the depth adjustment and then try to, it's just not safe to do. So this isn't really a good option for plunge cutting. In other words, cutting something out of the middle of the piece of plywood or something like that. But for all other cuts, just straight 90-degree cuts, this is absolutely genius. Overall, I think this is a fantastic upgrade. I would highly recommend, if you're picking this up, go ahead and get this track square. You'll thank me later. These are as handy as a shirt pocket to have in the shop. Now, I bought this Milescraft track saw guide a couple of years ago and I did that video, and then we gave it away, as we give away quite a bit of stuff here. However, for this video, they did send me the track saw guide and the square for me to check out. When I saw this, I knew I wanted to check it out. So thank you to Milescraft for sending this over. I'm sure we'll pass this along to somebody soon. If you stick around, I'll give you a bonus tip on how to get really accurate square cuts on more narrow boards. Number 2, this is what I started with. When I was trying to figure out how am I going to get straight cuts on plywood, I'm trying to build shelves, I'm trying to build cabinets and things like that. I don't have a big budget. What can I do? This is a Swanson straight edge. It's very inexpensive for what you're getting, and because you can join this together with this little track connector, this allows you to have a full 8-foot piece, or it's a little over 8 foot actually, so you can get the full length of cut. Now there's a couple of drawbacks to this. First, you have to clamp it down. There's no anti-skid pads on the bottom like there are on the track guide. And then you just put the saw up against the thick edge and let it ride that edge. You'll just push a little pressure that way. One of the things I found to be kind of a drawback to this over the years was when you connect this to make a full 8-foot rip cut on a piece of plywood, what you wind up having to do, you get both ends clamped down, you have to take some double stick tape or something and stick it in the middle. If you don't, what ends up happening is slight deflection in the middle, just because it's such a long span on a piece of aluminum straight edge, then you get a little bit of bowing. If you can take some double stick tape and stick in the middle, you'll get pretty good results. It's not 100% perfect every single time, but it's a really good option for those on a budget, and I use it to build a ton of plywood projects over the years. Now I've got one that's number 4 is super cool, and a lot of people probably don't even know about it. But number 3 is the KREG Rip Cut. I've used this a bunch. Like, I built so much stuff with the KREG Rip Cut. There's one major drawback to this, but there's a ton of positives in it as well. Just like the Milescraft, you can mount your circular saw into this and you start ripping. The one that I had would rip up to 24 inches wide, which for making shelves, cabinets, dressers, anything like that that's not overly bulky or overly wide, it works extremely well. And I made a lot of stuff with these things with my little rigid circular saw over the years, but there's one drawback that kind of, if you're not familiar with it, it'll get you. So at the end of the cut, you have to be sure, because of the way this thing is, it's basically a saw guide. It's not really a rail or anything like that. It's following along the edge of the plywood. So if the edge of the plywood is off, this could also create some inaccuracies in your cut. But for the most part, most plywood's good. If you're not holding enough pressure on that blue handle at the very end of the cut, it will walk on you. It will cause a pretty bad bow or miscut in the end of your cut. So just be aware to hold that pressure tight against the plywood as you finish the cut, and you'll be fine. The first couple times I was using this, I didn't do that. And I was like, wow, this is not good. And then once I figured out, well, you just hold a little pressure there, you'll get really good results. It's a nice option for a very affordable price. Next up, this could be a game changer if you make a lot of thin rips on plywood. This is called a skate plate sidewinder. I love this thing. First, it will mount to basically any circular saw. See the theme here? We can use basically any circular saw we have to get accurate results. This is an edge guide for a saw on steroids. Assembly, extremely easy. You're just going to bolt on this edge guide, and then you're also just going to install your circular saw. Now, this one comes with a couple of different options for mounting on the back. You can use 3 clips wide, so depending on how wide the base of your circular saw is, to clip it in. There's also a universal one that has a tightening screw that you can bolt down the back should it not fit on the other ones for any reason. Now, the bottom of this is kind of where the genius starts coming in. The bottom of this plate has rollers on it, very smooth rollers, like butter smooth, and it will glide on the top of your stock. So you're just getting a nice gliding motion on the circular saw as it's cutting. And the edge guide also has rollers. There's 4 rollers on this edge guide, so it's going to follow the edge of your stock with those rollers, and everything's just going to glide like butter. Now, they do make these for either a right hand or a left hand circular saw, so it depends on which circular saw you get is which one you want. They also make one of these for worm drive saws, so if you have one of these amazing saws, you could get one of these for it as well. Now, this standard version gives me about 10 inches of rip capacity. However, there are additional add-ons that you can pick up to get up to 24 inches of rip, and even some that have a handle here on the outside edge of this to give you a little bit more control. So there's a lot of options here if you like this setup. Here's the bonus tip I promised you. For under $10, this can get you very accurate square cuts on smaller stock like 2x6s, 2x4s, 2x8s, you name it. This is a Swanson Speed Square. Literally all you have to do, hold this on the stock, and then your saw is going to ride along the edge. You're just creating a guide for it. This is a perfectly square. It's perfectly as we need it anyway, and then you're just going to make those cross cuts. This is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to get accurate cuts on your more narrow stock. If you don't have a set of these Bora Speedhorse XTs, they're fantastic. Super easy to set up. Like when I'm going to cut this plywood, very easy to carry these outside, pop them up, and then start cutting. Just make sure you lock those legs in place. I'll link them in the description. If you like this video and you still want to dip your toes into track saws, there's a whole video right there from worst to first, the best track saws I've ever used, and everything in between. Click in the box to get you the big old virtual fist bump.